The case of Kamila Valieva has finally moved forward. It became known that the Rusada disciplinary committee acquitted the figure skater. Does this mean that all guilt has been removed from Kamila, and she can compete without fear of further punishment? Not at all, everything is ahead. Let's figure it out. Information in the form of a press release was published on the official website of the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. Here is the full transcript. The Russian anti-doping agency, Rusada, has informed the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, that its disciplinary committee has issued a decision in the case of figure skater Kamila Valieva, who represented the Russian Olympic Committee, ROC. The committee found that although the athlete had committed an anti-doping rule violation, it was not her fault or negligence. Thus, the committee did not impose any sanctions, except for the annulment of her result on the date that the sample was taken, December 25, 2021. WADA has requested a copy of the full reasoned decision, which it will consider in conjunction with the case file, to determine whether the decision complies with the provisions of the World Anti-Doping Code. However, based on the elements of the case with which WADA is already familiar, the agency is concerned about the finding of no fault or negligence, and will not hesitate to exercise its right to appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, as the case may be. The decision on this case was taken following WADA's announcement on November 8, 2022, that due to unacceptable delay on the part of Rusada in making a decision on this matter, the agency has referred it directly to cause. WADA demanded a 4-year disqualification for the athlete. After fully reviewing the decision of Rusada, WADA will consider its next steps to ensure that the issue is resolved as quickly as possible, and without further undue delay. WADA will not comment further until it has received and considered the reasoning in case file. Back in the first half of November, it became known that WADA used the right to go to cause, and requested a 4-year suspension. This is no longer news. It is possible that the previous appeal will be withdrawn, as it was filed due to the lack of a Rusada verdict, and WADA will consider a new one already on the acquittal decision itself. And then the proceedings are likely to continue. The cause hearings will still take place, and after a while the sports arbitration will make a decision. Do not forget that the entourage of the underage Valieva is still under investigation, and it is WADA that is collecting evidence of the guilt of Terry Tubberts and her team. Rusada did not quite exonerate Valieva, because the fact of the violation was established, but they also admitted that Valieva was not guilty due to negligence. This is a different solution. The decision now being appealed to cause by WADA is not a decision that amounts to a finding of no violation. From a physical point of view, this is a completely different solution. I do not quite understand the fate of the previous appeal. WADA should withdraw it, because there are no grounds for it. There is a completely different decision. Rusada made it. Yes, not on time, but there is a solution. My understanding is that that appeal will end, and they will now be considering appealing the new decision to cause. We do not know when they received the full package and whether they received it. But after receiving it, WADA has 21 days, during which they will consider the full package, see if there are grounds for applying the concept of absence of fault and negligence, or there are no such grounds, and then they will decide whether to go to cause to appeal this decision. Surprisingly, it is. Rusada Director General Veronika Lajanova said that she admits the possibility of appealing against the decision of the disciplinary committee. Rusada has not yet received the full text of the decision of the Disciplinary Anti-Doping Committee, namely its motivational part. We will conduct a legal assessment of the rationale for the decision made by the committee. After reviewing the reasoning part of the decision of the Disciplinary Committee in this case, Rusada will consider the possibility of appealing it. We expect to receive the full text of the decision in the near future and without any delay. TASS quoted Lajanova as saying. So nothing is finished yet, although Kamila, of course, will be preparing for the first Channel Cup on January 21, 22, and will perform there. Abroad, as expected, they did not rejoice at the acquittal of Rusada in the case of Kamila Valieva. The Americans are still hoping to get the gold of the Olympic team, and even those who are not included in the main team are trying to convince everyone around that 16-year-old student Terry Tubberts is a fraud. Jessica Calalang did not hold back in her statements and harshly criticized Valieva. Everything would be fine if the American herself was not in the same situation a couple of years ago. The figure skater was caught doping, but was able to prove her innocence, and received a second chance from officials. At the same time, Kamila, according to the athlete, does not deserve it, because she has a Russian passport. The whole world continues to follow the case of Kamila Valieva, who failed a drug test last winter. In a sample of the skater from the qualifying championship of Russia, the banned substance trimetazidine was found, which led to serious consequences. The student Atari Tupbirds miraculously was not suspended from competition at the Olympics, and now remains under investigation. Her gold medal, which she won with the Russian national team, is in jeopardy. However, a fateful decision is not far off. Recently, Valieva was acquitted by the Rusada disciplinary committee, noting that the athlete's body really had the specified drug, but it got there by accident. Kamila unintentionally broke the rules. Because of this, the punishment of the skater was not strict disqualification for 1 day, and cancellation of the results of the national championship. Each of these actions clearly hints that officials consider Valieva's other victories to be absolutely legal, that is, she should not lose her Olympic award. True, this is the position of only Russian specialists. The final verdict lies with foreign organizations, WADA and CAUSE, and, as practice has shown, few people abroad show loyalty to Kamila. Rusada's decision caused a huge resonance in the professional environment. American athletes were especially dissatisfied, who also have the gold of the games at stake. Even skaters who are not members of the national team criticized Valieva. Jessica Calalang walked especially hard on Kamila. That seems completely fair and unbiased. Doping is doping, it should automatically be equated with punishment. WADA should file an appeal. The end. The American sarcastically spoke on her social networks. Everything would be fine, but Calalang's attack against Valieva looks rather ironic, given that Jessica herself also got caught doping. The figure skater was convicted of using the 4-CPA stimulant, for which she was threatened with up to 4 years of disqualification, but she was able to convince everyone of her innocence, and after 8 months all charges against her were dropped. During this time, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, USADA, in cooperation with the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, investigated Jessica's case, and concluded that the drug was accidentally introduced into the athlete's body. The examination proved its presence in the cosmetics used by the skater. As a result, Calalang was fully justified and reinstated in the rights to participate in international competitions. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. It was a very embarrassing moment. I knew that I had done nothing wrong, continued to fight and did not give up. We were not going to take out the white flag. But at times I felt completely helpless. The athlete told Inside the Games about what happened. And one could sympathize with Calalang, who found herself in an extremely difficult situation, but against the background of her statements about Valieva, one has to doubt her honesty. In fact, Jessica and Kamila went the same way. Both were forgiven by the anti-doping authorities and allowed to compete in the international arena, but the American not only did not support the Russian woman, but also reproached her for deviating from a fair punishment. Obviously, the behavior of Calalang raises many questions, especially among Russian specialists, who criticize Jessica for her harsh words. Everyone has the right to say whatever they want. But I think that from the side of an American, a Dutch, a Swiss, an English woman from an athlete who used doping, it looks somehow strange. It would be better for her to refrain from such statements, so as not to once again remind the whole world that doping was discovered in her, said Tatiana Tarasova. Solidarity with her and Renat Lacia. To talk about your colleague like that is pure incivility and meanness. It is clear that there is competition between Russians and Americans, but there must be dignity and professional ethics in relation to each other. And what is happening now is just a disgrace, there are no other words, he said. Dmitry Vasilyev had an acute reaction. It is not correct. It's like in Krylov's fable. Isn't it better to turn on yourself, Godfather? This is in the style of Western athletes and politicians. They don't look at themselves in the mirror. Yes, the very fact happened to Valieva. Let the experts figure it out. But dirty athletes should not speak out about this at all. Perhaps Calalang really should have remained silent, because her attack on Valieva looks ridiculous. Both passed positive doping tests, but, according to the American, only one of them should have been forgiven. Again, it's about the correct passport. What do you think? Write in the comments.